This is Postscript News, cutting through the noise one headline at a time, quick, clear, unfiltered.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You know, listeners are really anxious to hear about this whole tariff situation.
Yeah.
And they've sent us some really interesting articles. We've got some stuff from the Toronto Sun and the Star. Even Rolling Stone is covering this.
Wow, Rolling Stone, huh?
So we're going to take a deep dive into tariffs, what they mean, what's happening, and why you should care.
Yeah, let's unpack it.
Okay, so first off, Amazon. They're kind of freaking out, right?
Yeah, it looks like they're already pulling back. The Toronto Sun's reporting, citing Bloomberg, that Amazon's canceling orders left and right.
Like what kinds of products are we talking?
All sorts of stuff. Anything that's coming from China or places like Vietnam and Thailand even. Think beach chairs, scooters, air conditioners.
Stuff people actually buy, not just like, obscure industrial parts or something.
Exactly. Everyday consumer goods, which is really telling, right? Because it means they're anticipating this is going to have a real impact on shoppers.
And this is all happening right after Trump's announcement on April 2nd, right? About those tariffs on what was it, 180 countries or something?
And a huge list targeting a whole bunch of countries. And vendors are saying these cancellations, they came out of nowhere. No warning, just boom, order canceled.
Ouch. There was that story about the beach chairs, right?
Yeah, that one was rough. A vendor had a $500,000 order already made, ready to go.
And then what?
Amazon just pulls the plug, cites some kind of error. But come on, it's pretty obvious what's going on.
I mean, 500 grand, just like that, gone.
Yeah, the vendor's stuck with all that inventory, got to scramble to find new buyers. It's a mess.
And it's not just that one case, right?
Nope. Scott Miller, he's a consultant who used to work at Amazon. He's seeing this all over.
Really?
Clients, all selling stuff made in Asia, suddenly getting hit with cancellations, no explanation.
So what's Amazon's game here?
Well, they're being pretty tight-lipped, but they did mention in their annual report back in February that these trade disputes, they're a risk.
So they knew this was coming.
At least they had an idea. And, they rely heavily on Chinese suppliers.
Yeah.
But the article points out something interesting. It's about these direct import orders. You see, sometimes Amazon buys directly from the vendor. They're the importer. They pay the tariffs.
Okay.
But if they cancel those orders...
The vendor's on the hook.
Exactly. So Amazon might be trying to shield themselves from the tariffs by pushing it back onto the smaller guys.
Clever, but brutal. And the analysts are taking notice, right?
Oh, yeah. Robert W. Baird, they're a big financial firm. They've already lowered their revenue forecast for Amazon for 2025.
Specifically because of the tariffs.
That's what they're saying, yeah. And, Amazon's stock has been taking a hit, too.
Worse than the rest of the market.
Yeah, down more than the S&P 500. So investors, they're clearly worried.
It's a big deal. But what about China? How are they reacting to all this?
Well, the Star's reporting that they're not messing around.
Yeah.
They're planning to hit U.S. goods with an 84% tariff.
84%. That's
huge. And that's up from the 34% they announced earlier. This is going to get expensive.
It sounds like all-out trade war.
Yeah, it's escalating fast. And remember, this is all in response to Trump's tariffs. That 104% duty he slapped on Chinese goods.
Right, that just went into effect Wednesday, I think.
Yep, Wednesday. And the European Union, they're getting ready to retaliate, too.
So it's not just a U.S.-China thing anymore.
Nope, this is global. And, people are starting to use the R word.
Recession?
Yeah, recession. The Star's talking about how Trump's tariffs are shaking up the whole global trading system.
Which has been in place for decades, right?
Exactly. And trillions of dollars wiped off the value of major companies. It's getting serious.
And China's not backing down.
Not a bit. They're basically saying, yeah, we have a trade surplus with the U.S., deal with it.
I guess that's one way to put it.
And they're saying they're ready to fight this thing, that they have the resources and the will to see it through.
That sounds pretty ominous.
It is. Plus, their currency, the yuan, it's been under pressure lately.
Makes sense. All this uncertainty, investors get nervous.
Right. But China's trying to manage that. Their central bank's asking state-owned banks to limit how much U.S. currency they buy.
Trying to stabilize things.
Yeah, prevent the yuan from dropping too fast.
Interesting. They're also going to the WTO, right?
Yeah, they're complaining to the World Trade Organization, saying these tariffs are a threat to global trade.
Trying to put international pressure on the U.S.
I think so. And, the markets are not happy about any of this.
Yeah, the S&P 500, it had its worst day ever. I read.
That's right, after Trump's initial announcement. And it's getting close to bear market territory now.
Which is what, a 20% drop?
Yeah, 20% or more. So investors are really spooked.
And it's not just stocks, right?
No, even U.S. Treasuries, which are usually seen as a safe haven, they're taking a hit too.
So people are moving away from risk, pulling back everywhere.
Pretty much, European shares are down, and the U.S. futures, they're pointing to more declines. It's a domino effect.
So we've got Amazon scrambling, China retaliating, markets tanking. What's Trump's take on all this?
Well, Rolling Stone has an interesting piece on that.
Yeah.
It seems his message is, let's just say, a bit different.
Different how?
As the bond market's going haywire, prices plummeting.
Right.
Trump's over on Truth Social telling everyone to chill out.
Really?
Be cool, he says. Everything's going to be fine. America's going to be bigger and better than ever.
Okay.
And get this, he's even suggesting that now is a good time to buy stocks.
Wow. Talk about a disconnect from reality.
Right. While everyone else is panicking, he's telling people to buy the dip.
The article points out that this is really freaking investors out.
Yeah, they're struggling with the instability. One day it's up, the next day it's down. Nobody knows what to expect.
I mean, the Dow's dropped 10% in a month. That's not nothing.
It's huge. And Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, they're both saying the chances of a recession, they're going up.
Thanks to these tariffs.
At least in part, yeah. And the White House is saying, hey, we've got all these countries lining up to make deals with us.
But Rolling Stone's saying that's not the whole story.
Yeah, they cite a Politico article that says a lot of countries are actually frustrated. They're not seeing any real engagement from the U.S.
Just more like, hey, we might want a deal, but you're not even talking to us.
Exactly. And Trump himself, he said at a Republican event that making deals isn't his priority right now.
What is his priority?
Well, he's bragging about the revenue the tariffs are bringing in, and he says, I know what the hell I'm doing.
So not exactly reassuring for anyone worried about a trade war.
Nope. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he was on Fox News basically saying, let them raise tariffs, who cares?
Anxiously.
Yeah, so what, he said. It's like they're not even taking this seriously.
Not the rest of the world is.
Absolutely. Okay, now, you also sent an article from Now I Walked about Israel and Iran.
Right, and I know it seems like a jump from all this trade talk.
Yeah, but it's all connected. When there's tension in one part of the world, it can affect the global economy.
Makes sense. So what's happening with Israel and Iran?
Well, Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, is pushing Trump to be really tough on Iran.
Tough how?
He's talking about dismantling Iran's nuclear facilities.
Wow.
He even compared it to what happened with Libya back in 2003 when they gave up their nuclear program.
And he's talking about military action.
Yeah, he said if Iran drags its feet in negotiations, the military option's on the table. And he's talked to Trump about it.
But Trump just announced direct talks with Iran, right?
He did, but Iran's saying it's going to be indirect talks focused on lifting U.S. sanctions.
So they're not even on the same page about what they're talking about.
Exactly. And Trump's already warning Iran that they're in big trouble if the talks fail.
So a lot of uncertainty there, too.
Tons of it. And that kind of uncertainty, it makes investors nervous. It affects markets all over the world.
It's all connected.
It really is.
Okay, so let's try to sum this up. We've got Amazon canceling orders, China slapping on tariffs, global markets freaking out.
Yeah, and Trump, he's over here saying everything's fine, buy stocks.
But a lot of experts are worried about a recession, right?
They are. And, what's really striking is how fast all this is happening.
Like one decision and boom, the whole world reacts.
Exactly. So I think the question for our listeners is, how does all this affect you?
Yeah, how do these tariffs, this trade war, how does it all trickle down to your everyday life?
Think about the prices you pay for things. Think about your investments, your job even. This stuff can have a real impact.
And this is just the beginning.
Oh, yeah, the story's just getting started. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But it's a reminder that the global economy, it's a pretty fragile thing.
And we're all connected, whether we like it or not.
We are. And, maybe this is a time to think about the bigger picture. What happens if this trade war keeps escalating? What does a world with more tariffs, less cooperation, what does that look like?
That's a question worth pondering. This has been The Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening.